Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north. Now, a few weeks ago, I made a video all about Vine Weevil and how they have turned up in my greenhouse and obviously will cause, or possibly could cause, a major problem to a lot of my potted plants in here. And what happened was I found one adult Vine Weevil doing its little thing with its antenna, and the following night I found another one. And in total, over the next few days, I found 5 adult Vine Weevil in my greenhouse, sitting on plants, munching away and doing whatever it is that Vine Weevil do. So I thought it'd be really interesting to see whether we could find an organic method to control these. In my video, I talked about using a chemical method, and somebody actually got in touch and said, look, you can actually treat these with nematodes. So I looked into it. I found some quite local. I've had a read of the packet. And I thought about the pros and cons of using nematodes for Vine Weevil treatment. So of course you can use them for other things as well. These are specific for Vine Weevil larvae, but of course you can use nematodes for all sorts of things. You've got to buy specific ones for specific bugs. So I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about this and come up with the pros and cons and see which side I come down on which side you might want to come down on. Now obviously I am not suggesting that you do exactly what I do. This is just my thought on it, my opinion on it, and you can make your own mind up. Just a little bit of information to help you along the way. So let's jump in. And we are in. Okay, we're off the tripod and onto the gimbal for this one because it's a little bit easier to show things and to demonstrate than standing in one spot. Okay, so over here we have the 2 treatments. Now I haven't actually used the nematode treatment yet, so let's just have a little look. So first of all, the chemical one. So this is the one that I was aware of when I made the last video, and I know this one works. It has lots and lots of pros, but of course it has some cons as well, which we're going to go through. Not really difficult to use, very straightforward, very simple, and lasts ages as well. See, I'm already going into the pros and cons, but we'll come back to that in a second. And this has just come out of the fridge. This is Nemasys, biological Vine Weevil killer, and we'll talk about that as well in detail. I haven't actually used it yet. I believe I have 2 or 3 weeks to actually use it, so we'll come back to the details. Oh, Fudge is off with his barking. Hopefully he will stop in time for me to go through the pros and the cons. Okay, so as I've just explained earlier in the intro, I have turned up about exactly 5 Vine Weevil, adult Vine Weevil. So they've obviously come from somewhere. I've since found out actually that Tradescantia are one of its particular favourites. And as you might know, I have several Tradescantia plants in this greenhouse. So that might be one of the reasons or one of the places that they came from. And of course, I know from past experience that Streptocarpus are also a particular favourite, as are cyclamen. So it's like a Vine Weevil larva heaven in here. And of course, when you get the Vine Weevil and the larva coming up through your pots in a closed space like a greenhouse, then it's not likely that they're going to wriggle off somewhere else because they're trapped, aren't they? They do tend to go for, or so I read anyway, the lower down plants and the lower down pots. But where did I find one of them? In fact, 2 of them, quite high up actually, up in the eaves. I have a Tradescantia on the other side of that partition, which is about 7 feet tall, about 7 feet high, and that's where I found it. Now, whether it had just hatched out or just metamorphosized from being a larva, I'm not really sure, or whatever it is they do, hatch out, metamorphosize, I don't know what they do, but they obviously turn from a larva. They pupate, don't they? They pupate from being a larva into a little beetle. I don't know what happened to it, but it obviously came from somewhere, and the fact that I had 5 in here would tell me that they've not all suddenly just found the only hole that I must have somewhere in this greenhouse. They must have come from somewhere. Now, obviously, some of the places could be, and I've not introduced them, so some of the places could be from plants that I've actually bought in. I tend only to buy orchids. The other plants that I've got have come as little plug plants, so it's unlikely that it'd be in a little tiny plug plant. They may well have come in from plants that have been outside over summer, so I'm thinking like this banana, for example. That's a possibility. Great big pot there. This Brugmansia, which is about to bloom as well, could have come in from there. Even though I did treat these pots, I do believe that lots of these different treatments don't treat the eggs, so that's something else to think about. I noticed I have down here that kind of trailing pelargonium, and I noticed that some of the surface of it was kind of roughed up, and as if something had emerged from there, and some of the soil was down the side. Now that could have been slugs, I don't know, maybe it came out of there. I don't really know, it's just all guesswork. Oh, we've got a little visitor who's decided to eat some of my banana down there. Fudge, what are you up to? Yeah, you might look all innocent. I know what you're up to. See, it's not floss, you know. Leave it alone. It takes absolutely no notice of me whatsoever. Fudge, say hello to the people. Fudge. 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 Hey, they like that noise, don't they? Fudge. Yeah, I know what you're up to, munching away there. I hope it doesn't do you any harm. Right, okay, pros and cons. So let's get back to what we were talking about. Pros and cons of these two treatments. We'll start with the Nemasys biological vine weevil killer. Now, first of all, vine weevil munch away at things, but that's not the main problem. It's not the adult which is the problem, apart from the fact that it lays eggs. It's what happens in the pot. You can just see in that little circle in there a little picture of the creamy C-shaped larva with like a brown head to it. That is the major problem, because what that does is once it's in the pots, all it eats are roots, nothing else. And those roots then obviously disappear. The first time you notice anything is when that plant collapses, and therein lies the issue. This is why they are such a pain in pots. So they really are a pest in a place like a greenhouse. You can get them in the garden, obviously, and you can get them in pots in the garden, and they can do exactly the same thing. But obviously pots are the main problem. If you get them in your pots, then the chances of you surviving that attack are pretty slim, unless you know that they're there, of course, and you can't see. So let's talk about some of the pros, some of the good points for using an organic method rather than the chemical method. Okay, so this isn't an exhaustive list, this is just a few things I thought of, and if you've got any thoughts on the matter, please put it in the comments below. I've not used them yet. Oh, he's off. What's he got now? What's that? That's a label. He's took a label, a little monkey. No, he's nicked one of my labels. He's done that before. I know what it is. It's a banana. I don't need to worry about that. I'll get it back off him in a second. Okay, so first pro, it's organic. Stands to reason, that's obviously a really good plus point. And because it's organic, that means there are no side effects. If you've ever used systemics before, which I have extensively, then you'll find that it causes mutations in plants, which can't really be a good thing, can it? I've tried that on cyclamen. I've had huge mutations on cyclamen. I've tried it on Brugmansia. Brugmansia really don't like systemics. I've tried it on all sorts of things. Streptocarpus, just exactly the same kind of problem. It causes mutated leaves. It causes mutated petals. This one is Streptocarpus Bethan, looking really, really good at the moment because I haven't sprayed it yet. And I'm not intending to if I can get away with it. This one is Pink Layla with bigger and bigger blooms, much bigger blooms than last year. And I would really like to try and keep these looking healthy. And of course, it's one thing saying that, it's another thing once it gets attacked by some kind of bug. Something kind of primal takes over and you just think, I've got to get rid of it. And that's my problem. I can't say I've solved that problem yet. So, okay, pros, it's organic. Because it's organic, it doesn't cause mutations. It also doesn't kill any of the friendlies. So any friendly bugs that you get in your greenhouse or in your grow room or your grow space aren't going to be bothered. These are very specific little creatures. They're natural, they're not caught, they're not created by a lab. Their natural enemy or their natural food is the very appetizing looking vine weevil larva, and that's all they eat. So that's got to be a pro, hasn't it? Price. Now, as far as price goes, there is a caveat to this which I'll come back to later on, but as far as price goes, both of these things, the chemical and the organic method, both cost roughly £8. Okay, roughly £8 for the treatment or to buy the box. Okay, but I'll come back to that later because it's not as simple as they both cost the same. The nematodes can also be used on expensive specimen plants. So we're talking about orchids here, are we? Orchids are normally the expensive specimen plants. So, oh, by the way, look at that. I know I've shown my Drosera capensis loads of times, but this time it's going to bloom. It's going absolutely massive this year. It's about 4 years, 3-4 years old, I forget. But it's really going huge, and it's going to bloom. It's got several bloom spikes on it. I don't think the bloom spikes are anything spectacular, but it's nice to see it bloom. So anyway, we was talking about expensive specimen plants. So it might be a Dracula. This is Dracula chimera. It's going to bloom. I know you've probably seen a few pictures of its bloom once already. It's got several spikes coming on it. I would not like to spray that with a systemic insecticide simply because it costs so much. I think it was about £45. They're not cheap as far as plants go, and I really wouldn't want to try it and test it and find that it really didn't like it, as I've found already with some of the plants in here. So that's something that is a pro for the biological vine weevil killer. The nematodes, completely natural, don't cause any harm to the plant or to any insects or any wildlife other than the vine weevil larvae or children or pets. Another pro is you've got several weeks when you buy it before you need to use it. I bought this about 2 weeks ago, and I think I've got till about the 5th of May. What are we now? So I've got about a week left to use it. So I've purposely held off because I didn't know that this existed, and I actually used the bug clear a couple of weeks back. And it's always a good idea, if you've had an infestation like that, to leave it a couple of weeks, mainly because you might not hit everything with your first application. So it's better to wait a little bit, wait for the life cycle, if there are any still alive, to progress a little bit, and then have another go at it. It's not easy to do, to hang on like that, because as far as I know, there are some bugs somewhere, some vine weevil larvae munching away on the roots of some of my prize plants, and there's not a great deal I can do about it really. I've got to hang on, hold fast, and I'm going to have another go this weekend. Still on the pros, once you've opened it, you've actually got a couple of weeks to use it. Even though it says on the packet to don't save any stock solution, you certainly wouldn't go and add it to like some water and then save it in solution form, mainly because these things, if they're held in water, they die in about 2 hours. So you don't want that to happen. You want to mix up what you're going to use what you're going to use, and anything that you don't actually mix into the solution, that can hang on in the fridge for a couple of weeks. Okay, so that's another pro. That's assuming actually that you do it straight away. Obviously there is a final kind of use by date on there, and no matter what you've done with it, if you go over that date, then the chances of it actually working are getting slimmer as the time goes on. Another pro is very, very easy to use. You simply add it to the water. So if I just show you here what we've got, it's simply like it actually looks like crumbly biscuit to me. I wouldn't like to taste it, but it looks like crumbly biscuit. So that gets added to some water, and you mix it up with a stick, and then you simply pour it on. So as I say, anything that you actually mix up, once it's already mixed up, it's got to be used within a couple of hours. Otherwise, those nematodes will drown in there, which is not what you're after. And the final pro that I've thought of is that it works within 7 days, and it supposedly gives you about 6 weeks worth of protection. So that's quite a long time for something like Vine Weevil. Vine Weevil has a life cycle which is very specific. It only tends to be over 2 or 3 months when they hatch from their eggs. Anything after that, then you're okay, you're in the clear. Unless, of course, there's a little bit of delay in them hatching, maybe because of the weather and so on and so forth. I'm sure that happens. So I've got to really be vigilant for these all year round. Okay, so that's the pros of using the nematodes as far as I can see. Let's have a think about some of the cons of using them. Some of the things that's not so good. So it doesn't have a systemic effect. The bug clear does have a systemic effect. It doesn't tell you how long for, but it says you can treat it twice a year, and it says it does prevent further attacks. Now, whether that means that the chemical gets into the plant or whether it means it just stays in the soil for a certain length of time, I really wouldn't know. certainly when you spray this thing, and I have to say the Bug Clear Ultra Vine Weevil Killer appears to be exactly the same formula as the spray. So when you're spraying for aphids or whitefly or scale insects or whatever it is that you spray on your plants, that seems to be precisely the same thing. So I would expect that if you're watering it on, you still may well get the mutation effects. So with the nematodes, okay, they've said it provides 6 weeks worth of protection, but after that you are completely vulnerable to attack. So it's perfectly possible that you may need to buy more than one, and this is the caveat about the price. Whereas the Bug Clear, because it's concentrated, that should last me, well, at the moment, obviously it depends on the number of plants, the number of treatments and so on, but for me, the Bug Clear Ultra lasts me at least a season, whereas the Nemasys Biological Vine Weevil Killer, if I'm going to have to apply it every month to 2 months, could potentially cost me more. And at £8 a go, that could be the deciding factor. I am aware that in other countries it could be even more expensive than that. Obviously, I'm just giving you the cost over here. But if I was to actually use it several times a year, then it could start to tot up. Another con, that the nematodes don't eat vine weevil eggs. So if you've got some eggs when you do the treatment, they are likely to still hatch out at some point. If it's beyond 6 weeks, that 6 weeks window that they were talking about, then you may well get another problem on your hands. So this is something that, again, is really a disadvantage for the nematode treatment. So as far as I'm concerned, there are the advantages and disadvantages of using both. There are very clear advantages as far as I'm concerned for using the nematodes. The main one, or the main disadvantage for me, is the possible cost. But I think the real litmus test is to actually use it. Now obviously, because I didn't know about the nematodes, I used the Bug Clear a few weeks ago. I am now about to use the nematodes, so we'll see what happens. I'll give it one treatment, I'll see how things go over the next month or two. If I don't notice any more issues and I don't notice any more problems, then I'm likely to stick with that. And next time round that I get that same problem, hopefully that'll be next year rather than this year, then I may well give those nematodes a try. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. I should put a link up to some videos that I think you might be interested in. Please give me a thumbs up if you found this useful, and for now I'll see you on the next one. Bye!